But that doesn't work because every hour on the hour, everybody gets uncomfortable again. They don't want to notice this time passing. They want to preserve their lives. They want to carry on as though everything was okay. So, in spite of, these, what seemed to us a very minor thing, that the clock is chiming. It was a very happy, very magnificent ball. And the Duke, he has these peculiar tastes. He has an eye for colors and effects. It's interesting here. There are some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him to be sure that he was not. So you kind of have to see this guy to believe him. He had directed the movable embellishments of the seven chambers. So Prospero was responsible for setting all of this up. And the revelers, again, the masqueraders, the costumes were grotesque. They were, they had unsuited limbs and appointments, so they were misformed. The costumes, there were, madman fashions. There was beautiful things, bizarre things, something of the terrible, etc., etc. And he goes back to talk about this clock that stands in this little square is meant to represent the clock here. So the clock's right there, but this little clock this big clock keeps chiming the hour. Okay, sorry about that. And when the clock chimes the hour, everybody again becomes very discontent, and it passes in a moment. And they have this light, half-subdued laughter. So these people, go back to enjoying the party. The music swells, the dreams live and writhe to and fro more merrily than ever. They keep, the dream alive. Time isn't passing. Everything's okay. We're going to have fun. No one went into the black room. And I don't blame them. The black room seems real creepy to me. For the night is waning away, and there flows a ruddier light through the blood-colored panes, and the blackness of the sable drapery appalls. And to him whose foot falls upon the sable carpet, there comes from the near clock of ebony a muffled peal, more solemnly emphatic than any which reached their ears. So what Poe is saying here is, since it was later in the night now, if you walked into the black room, your footsteps would fall on the carpet, but there wouldn't be any noise. The light, the fading light, and the fires made the already creepy scarlet color on the walls even more blood-like. And you'd be reminded of the passage of time and what was going on in the outside world if you walked in there. So nobody wanted to go in there. Everybody wanted to have a good time. So all the other 6 rooms were pretty populated. The music ceased. But now there were 12 strokes to be sounded by the bell of the clock. So it's midnight. And thus it happened. Perhaps that more of thought crept with more of time into the meditations of the thoughtful among those who reveled. So people started really thinking about what they were doing and what was happening. So before midnight is fully rung, they in the crowd are kind of become aware of this masked figure which nobody had seen before. Now this masked figure bears great importance in the duration of the story because the masked figure is the personification of the Red Death, the disease that's decimating Prospero's kingdom. So everybody, gets really kind of disgusted because this guy is not. This guy, anyway, has not really dressed in good taste. We're supposed to be having a good time here. And this guy comes in and, he's tall and gaunt and he's shrouded from head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closest scrutiny must have had difficulty in detecting the cheat. So he was wearing the mask of a skull. And they didn't, it was different back in the day. They wouldn't put you in the grave dressed in your best. They'd wrap you up in kind of gauze. So, in a kind of gauze-like material. So this guy shows up. His mask is one of death. It's a skull. He's wrapped up in all this gauze. He looks like one of the victims of the Red Death come to life to stand amongst them. And he was very convincing because he was, in fact, the disease, as we'll find out. But they say he looks like the Red Death. So we can assume also that the gauze is probably bloody, right? His limbs he's walking around very stiff, and all of that. Yeah, his vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow was besprinkled with the scarlet horse, so there was blood on the forehead. So Prince Prospero gets a look at this guy, who they still think is a guy. And he is not having it. He is convulsed with rage. And he says, Who dares insult us with this blasphemous mockery? Seize him and unmask him, that we may know who we're going to hang in the morning. So Prospero's in the blue chamber. And there might be a connection here to Shakespeare a little bit, because in Shakespeare's play, Much Ado About Nothing, he kind of equates these colors to the different stages of life. So blue represents the infant. Now, why an infant? Back in the day, every family wanted a son. That's just how it was. They wanted a son. Sons were to be desired. They carried on the family name. It was the way it is. So Prospero, it's fitting that he finds Prospero in the blue room. He's a dreamer. He's trying to stop time, stop death. The only way you can stop death is to stop time, and you can't do that. So the Red Death walks through all these rooms, and he's freaking out the masqueraders. And he finally gets to the blue room. He meets Prince Prospero. So the purple room, equates to, the school-aged person. Green, the lover. Orange, the soldier, you're ready to go fight. White, the judge. Violet, the old man. And then the black room, obviously, that is horribly written, but death. So you don't need to remember those phases. That was just for your information. So he comes and he finds Prospero in the blue room. Prospero's trying to kind of stop time by sticking around here. The whole thing is, just symbolizing the cycle of life. This whole story, anyway. That's what I meant to say. So Prospero is in the blue room. He was in the Eastern Blue Room, so Prince Prospero says, "Who dares," all that. And he has these courtiers around him, and the courtiers are kind of freaked out because this guy's costume is good. It is right on the money. And they're a little freaked. So they pass within, this man, the Red Death, passes within 3 feet of Prince Prospero. And we will stop it there for just a moment.